All right, outline recording bot backup. Can't go wrong this time, right?
Hopefully not.
I don't think so. But on the subject of things that have gone wrong, what's been going on lately? This has been an interesting this year's presidential election cycle. Let's get straight into what would be an emergency pod from the Pod Save America types. It kind of honestly got us, scrambling back to do another current affairs episode. We've all been pretty busy, but oh my gosh. So Trump finally gets a guilty verdict on something.
Yeah. This is the New York like hush money election interference case.
Mhm.
Guilty in all 34 counts. We can get into, some of what that looks like in a little bit.
Yeah.
Possible this is the only like felony counts he'll get, held accountable to before the election, maybe period, depending on how the election plays out. This is it's interesting because like for me, my money, I always felt like it was unfortunate that this was the case that was being held first because it's the one that, while definitely consequential, is maybe a little smaller potatoes compared to some of the other, cases, right? The documents,
Yeah.
potentially selling of foreign secrets and all that. The actual interference on the when he was in office, right, trying to
Right.
commit voter fraud and whatnot with Georgia, trying to throw out ballots, things like that. Um,
And it looks
but
like the Georgia case might not be forward as intended.
exactly, and I think that on some level this was like the I mean the Georgia one that's just kind of that's on the DA.
Mhm.
That was a big fumbling of the ball there. But definitely the Florida case. I mean, you have a Trump appointed judge in charge of it. It seems like the play was to just delay that as long as humanly possible. Of course, you have the SCOTUS immunity case as well. And this one I think was first kind of by design because of all of those circumstances. So it's maybe the slightly less like legally consequential one, but I think I might be like overestimating how much voters necessarily discern the difference between what he is found guilty for one way or the other. I mean, either way, I think this is going to prove to be a pretty consequential outcome. Um, potentially, definitely for Trump, but and potentially for the election as a whole.
Yeah, like I think I was reading an article from the Washington Post earlier where they were getting, I think, 4 polls on how do people feel about the guilty verdict.
Yeah.
I don't know if they followed it up with, do you care what they found him guilty on? I think it was just straight, do you agree that Trump is guilty? It was like 50 to 38 yes spread, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think that you've got like this situation too where like I think it wouldn't necessarily matter, right? There's going to be sort of like that informed reasoning that you come up with to sort of, if you want to find him, if you are going to vote for him anyways, right? You don't necessarily care
Yeah.
what it was, right? You're going shape or form that you choose, right? It's a partisan witch hunt. It's whatever. So I don't necessarily, and there was another survey. I can't remember who ran it, but it was from just Republicans. How do you feel about like a convicted felon being allowed to vote? And it was like 17% at the start of the year, and now it's like up to 58. You know, I wonder what
Yeah.
happened. That would have changed their mind.
Oh my gosh. So I mean, let's maybe just get a little more with it. When the news came up, it definitely was like a big story to break in a while. Initial reaction to the news.
So I mean, I guess it came in kind of like two steps for me as far as my reaction. Like, and maybe some of this is just sort of my echo chamber being a little bit more pessimistic, so I wasn't really sure what to expect here. But I mean, the fact that in the lead ups to the actual delivery of the verdict, that I was seeing a lot of like the Republican talking points weren't, oh, like this is so much of like, a witch hunt, whatnot. It was one brave American can hang this jury. Now, of course, Hang This Stray probably has like a slightly different ring to it after January 6th. But, I mean, like
Unfortunately.
there was this push, right, to just like the outcome is a foregone conclusion. Can we just like, there's no chance he's gonna be found innocent. Let's just delay and reject the legal process as much as humanly possible. So that kind of indicated to me that like, okay, things are going, pretty good in the trial. And like, I didn't necessarily follow the day-to-day briefings and stuff like that. I found it a little difficult to at times, even ignoring, my personal schedule. It was just, like not having cameras in the courtroom and whatnot made it a little less accessible. And of course, again, that was by design. Um, but when they announced the jury had the verdict, I knew that like it was over. Like there's no way they were going to come to. I mean, and this was a very rapid turnaround, right? Like
Hmm.
between the end of testimonies, like the jury are given the instructions to deliberate. This was less than 24 hours, I'm pretty sure. They very quickly came to their decision to find him guilty on all 34 counts. The sentencing, I believe, is next month, right? Or it might not have a set in stone date currently,
Let
but
me see. Yeah.
Trump sentencing. We also
July
have his
11th.
advice. Yeah, we also have his former advisor Steve Bannon being ordered to report to prison July 1st too. So, potentially future inmates or something. Now, for the sentencing itself, I personally just had always anticipated that would just be like, house arrest in Mar-a-Lago at like the most egregious thing. But the
Yeah.
way he kept going after the judge and jury in this, I wouldn't be totally shocked if like the book gets thrown at him.
Yeah, just of court and whatnot. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like, and like it is, and I mean, obviously the attack line on like this trial and everything in general, right, is like, sort of it's our two-tier justice system, and I think that well, let's call a spade a spade. Like, yeah, we do have a essentially two-tier justice system, but normally it's a two-tier justice system that would allow like Trump to just get away with everything, right? Like normally,
Hmm.
even like for the outcomes here, right? Like would he normally go to jail for these charges for that long? Probably not necessarily, but the fact that he is this obstinate, right? I mean, if you were just like a witness in a case and you acted the way he did, you would face serious repercussions.
Exactly. Exactly. I remember reading the news about it, and I don't know. I've never seen a reason to have a soft spot for it bluntly, right? So I've kind of said it throughout the show. Like I kind of don't care what happens to this guy. Like it felt good for like maybe a second, and then I'm like, your echo chamber is jaded. When you leave the internet, your echo chamber is just your head. So mine is equally pessimistic, I'd say.
Sure. Yeah.
Like,
Maybe a little crazy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a silent population of one. That's so. Um, yeah, I think like just the kind of like resistance like, high that some people were getting online that wasn't for me, and I think just with out this year and just the aftermath of the Trump years, like it doesn't feel like a victory in any sense, right? It kind of just especially when you consider like this is the charge that they got him on. There was a little bit of like, really, this is the charge they got him on, but at the same time, like I'm trying to tell myself, like, he had it coming. He did piss off enough people to make this happen, like can't just,
Well, and the interesting thing with like this being the charge that gets him and whatnot, right, is it's like this would have been treated probably a lot more seriously from, like, any other president, but, like, it really says something for how normalized, like, Trump has made just, like, so much of the flagrant violations of his administration,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That, like, it's like, "Oh, like, this is it?" Right? When it's like, yeah, like, this is it because you're comparing it to, like, every other ounce of bullshit. And like, unfortunately, it's like our system, um, politically has never really punished, like I mean, like even like you go to like Watergate and whatnot, right? Like the crime, like I mean, it's like, is he charged for war crimes? Or no, it's because of like trying to stop an FBI investigation. And not that that's like an
Mhm.
endorsement of that activity, right? But it's just like it doesn't meet like the gravity, which is how bad the Nixon administration was in a lot
Exactly.
of ways. And of course, this doesn't meet anywhere close to the gravity of how bad the Trump years were, but like it's something, and it's
Yeah.
something that is pretty bad. It's just like one of those things where, like, again, it's like there's so much of that, and even I was just a lot of the stuff when it comes to the media racket around basically Trump's VP shortlist picks, right? Where like almost like universally they are all asked, oh, like what do you feel? How do you feel about like the election results, like are you going to accept the results of the election? And of all of them universally reply now, well, we'll see, right? It's like
Yeah.
we've just so normalized like so much of the worst tendencies here that and nothing is going to ever feel like proper retribution unless it's I don't know. I don't know what would necessarily feel like proper retribution for these folks, or like
I
properly
don't
like
know, like
egregious acts to be punished for.
it makes like a Maoist struggles look like kindergarten, you know? But
Kindergarten was a
I
rough year for some folks.
I'm sure some resistance folks were probably really throwing something on the grill for this one, and I hope they had fun. But even in like
I feel
some
like
of
those people are
the
simultaneously like the easiest to upset and easiest to please people on the face of the earth.
honestly, yeah, because like you know what, that's probably the cohort for which like this is the charge that makes sense to get him on.
Sure, yeah.
I, but like even in like how Democrats are kind of react to this, I know a couple elected officials are taking the route of starting to refer to Trump as a convicted felon. But you had Biden not ready to really say anything about it. And of course, we've commented on the past on how Biden doesn't seem ready to say a lot about much. We'll get into that later. Um, but I think so. Let me get that date. He said this because this was at a fundraiser dinner in Detroit, so behind closed doors, basically.
Okay.
Or not, sorry, in an off-camera fundraiser in
In
Connecticut on
Connecticut.
Monday.
I
So
was like an
that
off-camera
was
fundraiser in Detroit. Like where who was that
no,
with?
there's a photo of Biden, and then the caption says this was in Detroit. So I'm like, wait, when was he here?
Oh,
Like,
okay.
got the two mixed up. So this was
Oh yeah, that
on
was the
the third.
NAACP dinner that he was at.
Yeah. So yeah, from CNN, President Joe Biden's decision to call out his predecessor Donald Trump as a quote convicted felon for the first time represents a significant hardening of his rhetoric against his Republican general election foe. I mean, it kind of goes in circles. Basically, they're like, "Oh, he's testing this on a focus group, which the audience at this
Yeah,
fundraiser."
I've
Right?
noticed too that there is from a few other officials too. I think like Maxwell Frost, I think was the one that I had seen where he just kind of had like this. Oh, this will be like my final word on it. Like justice is done, but like it wasn't like they're not really willing to go all in on it. And I don't know if there's like I don't know if it's like they're trying to distance themselves from that like resistance lib image of just being kind of just sort of like a vindictive team sports fan is kind of like what like the resistance lib experience is sort of boils down to. In like at least in my mind.
I think that's part of it, right? Because I think, especially with how unblurred this administration's handling of Palestine has gotten recently, right? Like appearing a real like Biden loyalist kind of aligns you with that. So I'm sure, like out of principle or out of intelligent image maintenance, you don't want to do that. But then um the other thing I would think, just as plain political strategy, is you want to look impartial even in something like this because of the political implications. And
Yeah.
I don't, and this is the thing, like about the imagery of Dark Brandon, right? So, Dark Brandon's the whole implication that's like, no, 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 he's after Trump's ass. Just watch him. And then to kind of not lean into it and be like, yeah, I made that happen. I understand that there's a real conversation to be had about power per se, and is that an appropriate thing for progressives into? I think that's a real conversation to be had. But for all the hay made about getting ass, this is the one you kind of want to lap on if you want a consistent image. That's my opinion, at least.
I mean, I can kind of, yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I don't honestly know that Dark Brandon's about like necessarily getting Trump per se.
It
I
was
mean,
about a
I
lot of
think,
things. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like I'm like I don't know if that's how I would diffuse it. I mean, some of it's like kind of like the element of that I think you're picking up on is sort of like it's sort of like kind of like the inverse of like own the libs, right? It's like owning the cons, like more broadly, not just Trump, and also just like the idea that he's like this secret mastermind who is like instituted Marxist socialism in this country single-handedly without us really knowing about it, which would be huge if true.
Man, I wish.
But you know, um, I think that yeah, I mean that there's elements where like yeah, like the Trump or the Biden campaign does it feels like they want to lean into Dark Brandon a little bit, but like that's ostensibly not who Biden is, right? And we've kind of talked before how he's not necessarily like the man of the moment and whatnot, but in to be fair, it's a hell of a moment to be the man for. Like I don't I
Mhm.
don't necessarily know if anyone could really take that, but yeah, it's just like there's so much of it. I feel like it's just like it's kind of that his like old timey brand of politics, right? Like like well yeah, we can like say things that are like maybe a little mean and harsh to one another, but we can't really like like we can't be Schadenfreude. We can't, like really lean in on, the apparent despicableness of the other side because, on some level he believes that there, some good left in them and stuff like that. I mean, that's been
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
his issue is just sort of like that ever, the ever present hunt for like moderate Republicans that like don't exist, right? It's like, people
Mhm.
who chase Bigfoot in the Everglades and stuff like that. It's that's
Right.
basically what it's amounted to at this point.
Yeah, and I think it's just, again, we've also talked about like the appeal to norms, the appeal to like that kind of decency, that, yeah, retro style decency. I don't know if I have a better word for it, right?
And and
Decorum,
to
as it
be
was.
and to be fair, when he sort of departs from it, like we've got the debates coming up, right? In
Yeah.
July. Right? They're well before something like, usually when they're done in like October or, September or whatever. And I remember Nate Silver got a lot of shit about this on Twitter, justly, I think, where it's like, oh, like this is like, I thought Biden's supposed to be the norms candidate. Now he's like spitting in the face of them by like changing the debate schedule, not debating in, at a later point in the campaign and stuff like that. So it's like and when your conceptualization of like the online um your online constituency is ostensibly cranks, right? Like
Yeah.
there's like it is as far as the left is concerned on the online community, right? Like some of them kind of dismiss them as like a lot of like Biden and his advisors sort of dismiss them as noise. Some people just see them as unwinnable votes, which there might be some truth to that in some instances too. um so it's like like okay, well, like do you cater to like cranks or do you cater to people who aren't it's sort of this you can't win situation. And yeah, like I think caving into like these norms, it's like on one hand like I see where voters might feel more comfortable and cozy with that. On the other hand, I also think that it doesn't really it's not deserved for some people to have, the norms respected towards them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, I don't know. We've really like made this such a touchstone of the podcast that like this contradiction between like Democrats supporting norms at the expense of policy wins or
Yeah.
image victories, compared to, how the disregard of them has kind of made not only like real W's for the Republicans on the electoral sphere, but also like has worsened, how do I say this, like social consensus, and has made things worse for people over the Trump years, right? So it's it, this kind of is like, the new phase of that. I think maybe it might have felt for a bit that, um at least to me, that this whole obsession of the right with culture war had kind of weakened as a consequence of inflation, as a consequence of, Israel and Palestine, and a couple other recent things, coming to the forefront in the American political, discourse. But this thing's always been brewing in the background, and I think it's going to come to a head with this election, as we're going to see. That's my
Yeah,
prediction.
and
You know?
I think that's fair. And you know what, like even when you're talking about like the image victory, I think like the adherence to the norms, I don't even think is necessarily like pulling that off anymore, right? And
Yeah,
especially when we're at this point where it's like so much of the media apparatus is like just owned by right wingers.
yeah,
Right? I mean, to an extent, it always has been on like some level, like or at least people, you know, like liberals at best, right, who are kind of a little bit more on side with the right and whatnot. But you have obviously we've talked about this before, social media, Twitter owned by basically a card carrying fascist at this point, right? I
at
mean,
this
like I
point,
don't.
yeah.
I don't know how else you can describe Elon. He has endorsed every far right candidate, including, I mean, he was getting owned for this with Argentina because he said that the election of their new little strong man would bring about prosperity, and it's actually
Oh
brought about
god.
like someone had posted it. I think they're at like 230 some percent inflation, uh, which is like
Oh, boy.
which is far and away above like the next like highest inflation rate in any country.
Also, I just, on the subject of Trump, or sorry. See, this is how easy it is to mix everyone up. Like, on the subject of like just, siding with the far right globally with,
Hmm.
Milei in Argentina, and I mean, like literally the first week Milei gets to office, like the policies are fucking people over immediately. Like it's that
Oh yeah,
it was that immediate.
yeah.
That so it's like, again, you have Musk leaning into the whole like ANCAP
Hmm.
far right thing that he always leans into, but then I heard this on a couple of podcasts. I don't know if I had a chance to look at any articles about this. Musk is trying to unban Nick Fuentes, a known white
I
nationalist.
believe he did.
Oh God.
I mean, I could be wrong. There's been talk about it for a really long time. Though I think there was a Nick Fuentes political compass that
Oh
I can't remember where did it say he was. It was
God.
I couldn't believe it. I gotta find it. Nick Fuentes takes political compass test. I just want, where did it place him? Uh, I can't remember where it put him. But it suggests that he was more moderate than he is. Which is absurd. But you've got, I mean, Twitter, as I said, owned by a fascist. CNN, I believe, still owned by, it's definitely gone on a pretty far to the right shift, right? And I think that leads into
Yeah.
some of the other stories we were going to talk about too. Like, I think a non-contribute getting fact to this. The publisher of the New York Times is openly anti-Biden. This is notably the same publisher who like she gives him like a lot of crap for like, again, not the stuff that like we would give him crap on. It's for like just random bullshit. But this is the same publisher who was like very much like in the pocket of like the Bush admin, where there's like a ton of like articles where it's like, well, you can't outright call the administration liars for Iraq.
Yeah.
At the point where it was explicitly clear to anyone with a couple brain cells that they had lied about Iraq.
Right. Right.
Um, so like, there's that. Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, like all these like are owned by like Murdoch folks and stuff like that. Like it's like you've
Didn't
got a
Amazon
lot
buy one of
of
these too?
WAPO's Amazon, right?
Yeah, yeah, either Bezos personally bought it or Amazon bought it. I can't remember.
Yeah, like Bezos not like trying to like endorse like his existence or like that he's like actually like, based or anything, but like I at least like Elon Musk is like the ultimate PR tool for like every other billionaire on the planet, where like the fact that they at least kind of are like less visibly involved with politics is almost appreciated. Like that it feels like it was by design, that because like Bezos is like, oh yeah, I don't like the guy, but he's not, explicitly just, try to platform Nazis.
I mean, if you take billionaire ideology to like a weird extreme, Elon Musk is theory and Bezos is praxis.
Yeah, in some ways, yeah.
Anyhow, oh my god.
But yeah, it's like you have like this, kind of like this dominated like right wing sphere, which I think is like kind of like tainting a lot of these things too. And it's like I said, with the image war, it's like it doesn't matter like if Biden had the most calm and reserved approach to anything, it would not impact the way they choose to cover it. And like we also have like the Hunter Biden trial going on right now, and like not, and it's interesting, right? Because you have like Democrats have taken like the opposite approach to
Yeah.
Hunter that like Republicans have for Trump, right? Every elected Republican, basically, if they wanted to have a shot, like any future ambitions, they all made the pilgrimage down to NYC to stand beside him for the court hearing, right? Democrats are willing to throw Hunter Biden under the bus. Not saying that like oh well they should be fighting the good fight on his behalf, but like you look at like what he's being charged for, right? It's like gun ownership. This is something that would have like realistically not gone to trial if it was anyone else. Even Trey Gowdy, who I would not have had on my bingo card for this, admittedly he's a Republican that's out of office, admitted that like, yeah, this is not exactly, and of course, he had to disguise it as like, well, Trump also wouldn't be, going to trial for this stuff either. But he was like, I've tried gun cases, like this would have never gone to trial. The fact that it's going
Right.
to trial is purely like this political like tit for tat. Um, essentially, right? And that's the whole point with the Trump or the Biden impeachment, right? It's like, well, Trump was impeached, we gotta impeach Biden for something, and we've seen how that effort has like just like again like failed miserably. They have to like, oh well, let's do a subpoena and arrest warrants for Hunter Biden and James Biden because they might have lied under testimony, but like the explicit lie that they might have done isn't entirely clear to me, because we just have to obscure all of this in bullshit because there's nothing of substance really like going on here. But it doesn't matter. They're the same as the push by like kind of the media apparatus as a whole.
Which is the thing, right? Where it's like there's probably stuff you could nail for like I don't know, like weird business dealings and a lot of that. Like you could probably nail
Sure.
him on that, but they're not gonna get him on that. They're not gonna
Well,
get him for
and
that.
again too, like every like charge is like in some cases like literally an admission, right? I mean, you had like literally as all this is going on, some new like $2 billion deal between the Kushners and the Saudis. Like,
See, they don't want to
when
know
he
about it.
like and I mean, this kind of reminds me there was some stuff I was looking at for my dissertation as well, for some tweets that Trump had done, and like there was one where he attacks Al Franken for that ancient scandal, right? I mean, that's how far back I'm going with with some of these things in the dissertation, is that he attacked him for that whole the sexual harassment thing, which everyone at the time was like, dude, what about yourself? And that was like dominated the media discourse for like a day.
Oh my, it's just the Hunter Biden stuff is such like, I mean, for my money, in a just society, you could probably nail both the Trump and Biden families on a discernible amount of charges. What they get charged for, I that's not for me to determine.
Sure.
But like, you're absolutely right. This is just like a weird tit for tat, and I think Trump actually getting caught with one of these red-handed is kind of like, you know it raises the pressure to be like, okay, we need to do another like lawsuit on him to also put him in like a. It just doesn't work the same way because you think trying to do is like, see, Biden has legal issues too, but it's less, I don't know,
Well, that's
it's
what they're
still that.
trying to do, right? But it's like they have
He's
to
like, it's
do
less
it by
immediate. His
proxy.
son did it. His son did it, but it's like Trump did it himself.
Yeah.
If anything, you know, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah. Like I said, it's one of those things where it collapses under meaningful scrutiny.
I don't even know
And
if this is meaningful scrutiny. This is just collapsing the minute you say it out.
well, I mean, I have to kind of like add that extra layer of like like just because like uh, I mean, critical thinking in this society is in the tubes. Um let's just
That's why they call it critical thinking. Emphasis on the critical, not the thinking.
yeah, right, it's there's that. There is one angle though I did want to raise that I don't think we've talked about enough yet, which is the huge upside that Trump has actually acquired by being convicted, which is that he now is able to he's now become more relatable to the black community.
That angle is so fucking stupid. It bothers me. Like the same people saying that are probably gonna try to. You know, Biden needed his son to do the crimes. Trump did it himself. Like that's as you know.
Yeah, well, and as I said, like that angle. I mean, the only reason I brought it up, I literally just saw a thing with I guess Joe Rogan brought it up too.
Fucking
Um,
Rogan brought that up. Oh hell no! Oh my god.
right, yeah. But like I had seen like he wasn't the first person I saw to bring it up, but like it's just like again another instance of it where it's like also just like the blatant racism of it, right? Like, oh well, what do these things have in common? Well, black people go to jail. Am I right?
So stupid.
Like
Oh my god.
yeah,
That's
it's like oh my god.
there's a lot of talk about like, it is fair criticism that like Democrats are not doing well with reaching out to communities of color anymore.
Sure,
That
absolutely.
they're moved, like attitudes need to be fixed. But then it's like every time a Republican tries to like get a leg up and be like, exactly, we're the not racist ones. They always put their foot in their mouth immediately.
Well, yeah,
Like,
you have this. You had when the mugshot was taken, like, oh, this puts
oh
Trump
my
in like the same
god.
shoes as like every black man in this country or whatever. Like, like just ridiculous, like just blatant. Like the dog whistle is gone. I mean, it's been gone pretty much the whole Trump era, but like, and then this is a separate discussion probably for another time. But like, I've mentioned before with the whole Jim Crow thing with Tim Scott, but like Byron Daniels has been under fire recently for like basically saying the same thing, like, oh, blacks were better off under Jim Crow and all this stuff. Like,
Oh god, that was a field day. Field day.
well, at least and again, it's like at least the family was together is like their angle, and that's the supposed not racist part about it. Despite the fact that it's also again like reinforcing other racist tropes that they're trying to instill that aren't really backed up in much. Like it's like white white divorce rates are also up too. Like, it's like, what are you?
Yeah, it's like, what is the angle you guys are going with this? Like, this is not the W you think it is. Like,
Yeah,
but it's also just, I don't know, ignorance in the service of ignorance is always scary.
for sure.
So let's maybe get to the Democrats now, because it remains to be seen what's going to happen with Trump moving forward. So I didn't get a chance to talk to you about this when this was going on. That the peer that was being like touted as like this big W
Yeah.
for the Biden administration, it floated.
Yes. Yeah, that floated off to say. I think that was, to be fair, more or less right after the verdict.
Like, it's just like, I don't know. Does art imitate life, or does life imitate art? Because like, it kind of like, I don't know if the Trump version now offers a new angle for Biden to represent himself, because the Gaza angle has just not been working for him. It's been very unpopular. It puts Biden in a pretty negative light, deservedly, but
Hmm.
I think it, provides a new angle for them to take, be better received. But the thing about the peer, like, there was just something so ironic about that, where it's like this whole thing was being touted as like a, no, we care about, humanitarian aid, we care about all this, and then for that to just collapse, it did.
Yeah, and that situation, the whole everything going on in Gaza has been very hard to follow. Like, not just for like the kind of grotesqueness of everything, right? Like,
Yeah,
that certainly makes it, like, make sure you're not you don't have a light stomach for that. But like, there's the fact that like it's difficult to follow what's happening at any given moment too, where
yeah,
it's like it seems like there's times where it seems like, oh, we've made like some type of breakthrough, some type of humanitarian breakthrough in it, and then like, well, no, we haven't. Well, actually we have, and it's like not entirely clear what's going on. I mean, obviously, I mean, probably, I mean, not that the rejection of the ICC is necessarily the most deplorable thing about the situation, right? Obviously, it's the actual, slaughter of, Palestinians itself. But like the fact that, there seems to be this need to take a stand against the International Criminal Court of all things, because they want to prosecute them, and it amazingly mask off reactions to it, which were including from Lindsey Graham. If they go after Netanyahu, they can start going after us for like Iraq and Afghanistan.
mask off, absolute mask off
Like,
moment.
it's like, I mean, don't threaten me with a good time. Like, why wouldn't I want to see that? Like, and it's, yeah, and to be fair, I mean, they also can't technically go after U.S. officials because we're not part of the ICC. But ignoring that for a moment, maybe the fact that Israel chose to participate in it largely what for this administration probably feels like, cynical reasons. But I historically certainly made sense, but they don't represent, the Israel of today very well. I don't
Right.
think they would choose to pursue that. They probably regret being part of the ICC.
Oh my gosh. So, in addition to just Biden's popular imagery as well as just actions with this, there's another rightward from the Biden administration this week. So this is from Reuters. I'm just going to go through this. But basically, I don't know if this is the fairest way to say this, but it kind of is the vibe overall, is that the Democrats have basically decided to run to the right on immigration, and kind of, in summary, legitimize the border hysteria and border like fetishization of the right in doing this. That's the real implication to me. So
Yeah,
is
and
it gonna?
I mean, I would push back ever so slightly on it in the sense that I
Mhm.
think that the right wing push on the border, I think, has already been legitimized up to this point.
That's
Like, I talked with, like the media stuff and whatnot. I mean, this has been this is framed as like a little less so in recent months, but it's been framed as like this colossal crisis that like even with like, Republicans are getting blamed for it in part because like they're just refusing to, pass their own fucking law um to, accomplish the things that they've supposedly wanted to for years because they've very blatantly pointed out that like we can politicize the issue, which again used to be something that you had to, sort of be more intelligent to figure out that that was what was happening in politics. Now they just, they just tell you, why not? Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that's like kind of like, the overarching problem with it is that it's been framed as like we have to do something about it. We have to probably do something about it that's more right wing, and like immigration is one of those issues that like in some ways, right? I mean, like there's I think it's been treated too much as like a binary, like yes immigration, no immigration. Like there's acceptable levels of migration and whatnot, and I don't know the issue well enough to know that like, oh, we've like, we really have like, way too many people that are coming into the country and it's going to cause actual problems. But the particular approach with the Biden ruling, which might be the thing that he is limited to do as well, but has to do something apparently. Is that like it explicitly is like against asylum seekers, correct?
yeah. So basically, from Reuters, yeah, it is a broad asylum ban on migrants caught illegally crossing the U.S. Mexico border, a major
Yeah.
enforcement move in the run up to November elections. Migrants caught crossing deported or turned back to Mexico under the measure, which will take effect just after midnight. There will be exceptions for
Well,
people
this
who
is
face it.
midnight, like a few
Yeah,
days ago.
yeah, a few days ago, and the big like sour, the sour note in everyone's mouth looking at this is like there was a lot of hay made about um detentions of children, family separation at the
Yep.
border during the Trump years,
Hmm.
justifiably so. It's very upsetting that that happened. Still might. So,
Yeah.
for the Biden administration to politicize that issue and say we're going to take action on it, only to still lurch to the right, um, it just feels exceptionally cynical, and it feels, more more hollow in the, in the in the kind of Biden, pitch of he's bad, but he's not Trump. Because if both administrations continue to lurch right on immigration, that fundamental difference between Biden and Trump that gap is starting to close.
And I think this is the thing too, where like I think on the immigration issue, I mean, we kind of knew this, and this was always like, I mean, this is like the issue I've always had fundamentally with like, the
Hmm.
resist lib type is that like we knew that kids in cages was an issue in the Trump era, and the minute a Democrat was elected in office, no one would give a shit.
Hmm.
And that's not, to be fair, I think that extends beyond just resist libs as far as not giving a shit. I think a lot of people, even people who care about the issue, right? They just, I mean, some of it might just be like, cynical futility, right? Like, what can you do? Like, whatever. Just like, try to like
But that out of
tuck your
sight,
chin in the
out of
sands and cope.
mind.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, just like,
exactly.
let's just cope. Um, and whatnot. And, um, I don't know if that's like part of it, but like, yeah, it's, you're right. It's one of those things where like the dimensions close, and like when the particular issues that the Biden administration has is that like when the idea that he's different than Trump, when it's on like the issues that or at least feel more salient, right? Immigration is maybe a little bit more salient. Um, Gaza more salient when it's like, yeah, like, sure, Trump would be worse, but like when it feels like, well, things are already so awful. Like these are the things that highlight that sort of lesser, asterisk of two evils. And anything that does that really sort of, jeopardizes re-election chances, and it just makes you feel, bad, like to live in the country, and bad about politics in general as a whole.
Yeah, and like I mean, on the subject of because I'm not an expert on immigration policy or any by any stretch, right? I'm more so just someone who's been
Sure.
following the discourse and the attitudes of people participate within it, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, just I kind of see like straight extension from like not just like NAFTA on. There's this combination of like NAFTA era economic anxiety with post 9/11 xenophobia that has kind of warped, mutated, and changed shape and name
Yeah.
several times, but has kind of been most strongly expressed in the response attitudes to the Syrian refugee crisis, right? Um, Not everyone understands what happened with Syria. I still don't
I
understand the conflict in broad terms, right? But
And I mean, I don't necessarily disagree, but I mean, it's weird because like even like this, like the height of that refugee crisis, even that is like so far in like the rear view window.
yeah, but like that was when like I guess I don't know because so much of this is also tied into, and I think like this is a bias of people mine and your age is that came of age as these issues were coming to a head, so they feel more immediate, relevant.
Sure.
Like our anecdotal perspective, maybe seeing some of this, right? But this idea of incoming hordes are coming in to not only steal your job but impose their foreign culture and language upon you
Yeah.
was this weird anxiety I'm seeing from European and American observers. And it also bled into like the world more largely. And as just as a survivor of the 2016 Democratic primary, to put it bluntly, right? Um, I fears were like if you talked about like someone did publish this article or it's like a story or something like it was very well like written that like the Syrian refugee crisis is not just a fallout of barbarian politics in the Middle East. It is also the product of climate change. It's the product of economic instability. It's a product of all these. And then a question came up about it in one of the Bernie versus Hillary debates. Bernie says the effect of the Syrian refugee crisis and climate change are linked, and a lot of
Hmm.
hardline Democrats, hardline Hillary people, we don't need to name them. We know some of them who said this was like you're for thinking that, right? But in
Hmm.
hindsight, when you look at current, like especially in the COVID years, because of how more immediate and I guess because of the sophistication of news and the sophistication of social media to an extent, right?
Sure.
Um, we're seeing more we're seeing more crises of political instability. We're seeing more crises with climate. We're seeing more crises with economic instability, and people aren't migrating because they want to. People are migrating because they have to. And like people look at me like I'm crazy but it's like this is one of those consequences of the United States getting a better position in the world system, in getting um, its hands and in a variety of things, even if it's justified, even if what we did like had some good intention behind it. Let's say you have to deal with the fallout of your involvement in the global system, and to create the system where even though things aren't exactly the best within the United States domestically, right? Our entire consumer goods, our entire economic order is predicated on how global trade and who works within that system, who is put upon and impressed to work in that system. And maintaining that order has its consequences, and it's having its fallout. We talk about blowback from military operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, or our, Operation Condor in South America and all this stuff, right? We can talk about that. But then this idea, people who live in these areas when they become unstable should just like sit there and die is a very weird Western neurosis. And you kind of see it. We first saw it in the way that Americans react, or sorry, in the way that Europeans reacted to incoming migrants from Syria, right? Where you
Sure.
had, especially mobilizing in like Eastern Europe to like not let people in. You had a variety of European politicians suddenly like taking this really hardline right stance on migration. You had it, funnel into things like Brexit. You had it funnel into all this, right? And then America kind of takes this a similar route too. Just this idea of somebody seeking asylum in the U.S. and it turned into, I mean, the right capitalized on it in America. It turned into like fears of terrorism and nonsense, right? So
Hmm.
to see like the Demo now lurch rightwards, so post Obama. I'm not going to say Obama was a bastion of the left tradition in America. There's been a visible run to the right on, and people might see that as separate from immigration, but I
Hmm.
think it has to do with this punitive culture we have in the United States, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I would
And
say even there's definitely traits of that even in the Obama years, but I think a lot of it too is it's just sort of like this kind of ever since like the 80s when we just sort of like kind of accepted these sort of like Ayn Randian principles, right? Of like
yeah,
there's no society, there's just like you and stuff like that. And I really like all this is like an extension of that, right? Like yeah, like you can tell people about like and I feel I still think education about the like the push factors that drive people to migrate are poorly understood and poorly acknowledged in
hmm,
in America, probably globally, right? Obviously in Europe especially, but we don't necessarily acknowledge those features, but also like there's this fundamental sense of like even if you did acknowledge it, a lot of people simply would not care.
yeah,
They're just like, all right, well, neat. Like it's not my problem. They can go figure that out somewhere else. Better learn how to swim or whatever. Like whatever, like kind of heartless,
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
reflection there is of that. I think that's just it's just part of that sort of that nature that they're not that we haven't ever really conquered. I mean, like in some ways we've maybe made progress, but like definitely not in the way that actually translates into anything resembling policy.
Exactly. It just presented a contradiction at the heart of, I mean, this might, maybe this is just one of those like sublimated moments in the culture war, right? But it's like the major era of like, this vision of America as the melting pot, as s- bastion of diverse immigrant groups,
Hmm.
is complicated mess of people, it could lurch towards something better versus the very real racism, xenophobia, and I mean, frankly, just cruelty as policy
Hmm.
that is latent in Europe, definitely in how the American state operates, right? And it's also just telling with like our relationship to labor. So, I mean, if you read books like, I mean, we've spoken about a people of the U.S. like it's gospel. If you look at Daniel Immerwahr's How to Hide an Empire,
Hmm.
a text will get into like this kind of assumption you can have something for nothing. Americans like to pride themselves on like personal responsibility, pull yourself
Sure.
up at the bootstraps, but also I want it and I don't care who has to suffer for me to get it kind of
Yeah.
thinking. And I mean, it's I don't know, it's like the Bracero program to today, right? Where it's like you want the minute shortage of labor, you want people to jump in and fill the gap, but you don't want to look at them. You don't want to have to acknowledge that they take up
Hmm.
space. Like one of those really cruel examples I saw, like I guess 2014 is when this was coming to a head. Someone just had like a like a sticker on the back of their car that was like "fuck off, we're full," and I'm like
Hmm.
most of the country's like uninhabited. Like
Right.
I'm not talking about sending people to Death Valley. I'm just like there's housing stock that isn't full. We don't even house our own homeless, let alone like you know
Which
people
is always
coming
sort
in.
of the bad faith retort, right? It's like that they engage with, right? It's like, well, we should prioritize our own, but we
What are we doing that?
won't. Like,
Exactly.
but if we had to prioritize anyone, we should prioritize our own first. But God forbid we even do that much.
But I think like that's probably like the animus of what this new right wing trend, right? This new right wing formation globally, right? Is that I think we've all been talking about like there's this globalized right that's emerged probably post Trump, but its animus is the refugee crisis. It is this contradiction at the heart of the modern new, which is how do you deal with a system that believes in free movement of goods,
Well, I mean, you got like
commerce, and
Brexit and
money, but
whatnot too, and all that too. Like right
exactly
around the same time.
like Brexit was probably like the biggest political symptom of it, if not in the West, I'd say, right? Of course, there's so
Hmm.
many um just bad things that have happened, right? Like the Muslim ban as a consequence, the
Sure.
just every bad thing that happened at the border under Trump, and then even I mean, Greg Abbott is like a subset of this, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's just the whole like hard on that the American right has had for like outsiders,
Hmm.
the alleged threat of illegal people coming in. Like it's come to like again this closing of the gap between the Democrats and the Republicans on immigration, on
Yeah.
the supposed threat of people coming in, right? It ignores like a very real crisis in the world right now into a variety of social, political, economic, environmental ills, well
Hmm.
as it's for the Democrats and Republicans, we talked about how they agree on running the ship of state. For this to be a new thing they put under ship of state, it's work to me.
Yeah.
Forgive my rambling. I don't know. So that's where Donnie Boy will stand in this little context for now. Have you read this article in the New Republic about Erik Prince's group chat?
I have not.
Okay, you're in for a treat. I'm actually happy that we have a chance to talk about this on the show. So, a lot of these guys like to talk about parapolitics, conspiracy theories. Well, here's a
I
conspiracy for
think I
you.
heard that it was a thing, but I don't think I had read it yet. Yeah.
Oh my god, it's like I need to turn the
Honestly,
ad.
like, it drives me nuts. Like, the things that are, like, these, like, anti-ad block measures drive me nuts, not necessarily because I want to, block the ads, I mean, sure, but even when I turn them off, they still don't work properly.
Yeah, it was working too, so I don't know what they're getting mad at me for. Hang on, let me open the link in print preview. Okay. Here we go. Perfect. You can see it, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but we're just going to go through like the key paragraph. This is crazy.
The Biden
So
regime.
yeah. So this is from Ken Silverstein, 30th, 2024. So in his book, In the Garden of Beasts, Love, Terror, and an American Family in Hitler's Berlin, Eric Larson cites a case sent to the State Department in 1933 by a U.S. diplomat posted in Germany that provided a far more candid assessment of the Nazi, the one that FDR's administration was conveying to the public. Quote, with few exceptions, the men who are running this are of a mentality that you and I cannot understand, read the cable, which was written 5 months after Adolf Hitler was appointed chancellor. Some of them are psychopathic cases and would ordinarily be receiving treatment somewhere. I've thought about that passage from the case many times over the past several weeks as I've been reading excerpts from a private WhatsApp group established last December, founder of the military contractor Blackwater and the younger brother of Betsy DeVos, the Secretary of Education during Trump's administration, who invited around 650 of his contacts in the US and around the world to join. Prince, who has a long record of financing conservative candidates and causes and has extensive ties to right-wing regimes around the world, namely which currently has around 400 members, Off Leash, the same name as the new podcast that he launched the month before. I And they leaked the Discord. That's what they did at the New Republic. The group's hottest topics: the Biden regime, which a consensus of off-leash participants in
He was an ally
few
of Islamic terrorist.
Yep, yep, and other American forces that need to be crushed, along and its partners in the deep state, such as former Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Mark Milley, who quote deserves to burn in hell. Logan shared with the group. Who's Lara Logan?
Crap, it sounds familiar. I
South
like.
television journalist. Oh my god.
Well, there it is, the
Uh,
apartheid connection. Uh,
Apartheid Connection, joined Fox Nation, board member of America's Future, a conservative nonprofit chaired by former Trump admin official Michael Flynn.
Jeez, of all the people that could have.
Oh my god. Okay. The shortcomings of democracy that invariably resulted from extending the franchise to ordinary citizens who are easily manipulated by Marxists and populists. Quote, the West is at best a beautiful cemetery, lamented
Man, we've been
Sven von
dropping the ball.
Storch. Here's the Mr. von Storch, whose aristocratic German family fled the country after World War II to Chile, where their son was
Hmm,
raised before returning to the land of his ancestors, where he married the granddaughter of the Third Reich's last de facto head of state, who was convicted at Nuremberg. Oh my
nice.
god. Oh my
I wonder
god.
why they would have fled to Chile.
Oh my gosh. Israel Palestine, a problem that Michael Udelson, Prince's business partner at Unplugged, which markets an allegedly secure smartphone, said should be handled by napalming Hamas's tunnel network. Quote, I would burn all of those, everything above ground, everything left of Gaza, collapse into this fiery hell pit and burn, he wrote. Oh, God.
That ruins the real estate value. What do these people not get?
What did these I thought they wanted beachfront property. Like, get Pick a struggle, guys. What do they want?
If
Oh my god. The Houthi rebels in Yemen, whom
it's like
Yoav
it's funny because like we always like talk about how like oh they're like after like the land and whatnot. I feel like that's just like a nice little bonus to like their actual ideological objective, which is just wiping people out.
Oh my god, it's disgusting at this point. And I mean
Yeah.
they're over here admitting it. The
Yep.
Yoav Goldhorn, who was an Israeli intelligence officer until last year, and now works for a Tel Aviv-based security contractor headed by blah blah blah. Things should be dealt with as soon as possible to ensure they don't grow from an inconvenient mess that will require an entire limb to be amputated. And most of all, Iran, which participants to be wiped out. Oh boy.
Well, God took out their president, so
Oh my god.
they're just gonna have to settle. Um,
Oh my god. Talk about kicking people when they're down.
right?
Not all of the group's members are conspiracy theorists in the mold of Logan. I'm assuming they're talking about Lara Logan, PBS correspondent. I know many people who are in roughly the same political ballpark as the average off-leash participants. Let's see.
They're not all conspiracy theorists, but they are ostensibly politically
Well,
identical.
well, I mean, what's the thing? The thing about conspiracy theory is crazy here because it's like people with power. Like I don't understand what they're
Right.
what they're complaining about. You know,
I don't even necessarily like those things. I didn't. I mean, other than like the Biden regime is aligned with Islamic terrorists, I didn't really see anything that was that particularly conspiracy minded. It's just them like having awful views of the world.
pretty much. It's just like rabid racism and xenophobia, right?
Yeah.
So many of the participants, though not all household names, are wealthily wired, which makes their incessant whining in the group chat about being crushed under the boot heel of the deep state particularly grating. And they actively become wealthier and more influential if Trump wins in November. That's especially true of the Americans in the group, but the same holds for the international figures because the global right will become immensely more powerful and emboldened if the former president returns to the White House. That prospect is a source of great hope to the chat's participants. Quote, Trump or Milei, it's happening. Former Blackwater executive John Ladelfa posted to the group during a trip to Argentina on December 4th. Quote, around the globe, we are the sensible, the rational, the majority. Don't give in to fear. We will defeat the Marxists. And it just so that this gets like worse and that there are cartoonish, like I'm talking Marvel comic style like villains in this group.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
His whole shared by many other participants, including among them Horatio Potra, a Romanian mercenary who was recently operating in the mineral-rich, conflict-plagued Democratic Republic of Congo.
Huh.
Oh
Yeah.
god. It's getting cartoonish at this point.
Right. Well, it's just like
But
the connections these people have to like. Oh, there was it's Tucker Carlson, but
let's
it's like the connections
see.
these people have to like the villains of years past too is like, come on.
Oh my god. This is a rogues gallery. Like if anyone's Discord needs to be leaked, it's these guys.
Oh, 100%.
Oh my god. So let's see. Collectively Off Leash provides an informal virtual gathering place for current and former political officials, national security operatives, activists, fortune, weapons brokers, black bag operators, grifters, convicted criminals, and other of the US and global far right. All your ops are in a group chat, folks. That's what this is telling us. The roster of invitees includes icons of the MAGA ecosphere, such as Tucker Carlson, the most revered figure among the participants. Oh my god. With the exception of the Supreme Leader himself, Kimberly Guilfoyle, the
Oh
fiance of Trump
God.
Jr., and retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, Trump's convicted, then pardoned First National Security Advisor, and only minimally, and Guilfoyle not at all. Current and former lawmakers and aides, such as Tennessee Congressman Mark Green of the House Freedom Caucus, Vish Bora, who was director of operations for George Santos, and Stuart Seldowitz, a national security advisor to Barack Obama, who was arrested last November after harassing an Egyptian halal streetcar vendor. Oh, it's that guy. During which time he called the guys and said, "If we killed 4,000 Palestinian kids, it wasn't enough." Jesus. Oh my gosh. Trying to
Yeah.
think because it gets like there's some real fucking like. Let me see if I can get to the part that was really funny. Oh, Ryan Zinke's in this too. Actually, we're gonna quickly intersect with Monster Pop real quick. It was hard to keep track of all the wars, invasions, covert operation coups, and assassinations off-leash members favored. One region ripe for a bit of good old-fashioned Western intervention was Africa, which was described as a pot about to over by Emma Priestley, who posts as, quote, customer in the group chat and is the CEO of Goldstone Resources Limited in Jersey, the English Channel island that is one of the world's most popular offshore secrecy havens. Oh boy.
Nice.
China would have to be taken down a peg as well, particularly as Biden wasn't going to stop the country, quote, from doing a damn thing. And indeed, he would pay the way for it to do whatever it is they want to accomplish. Posted Randy Couture, former UFC heavyweight champion and actor who had the role of arsonist and killer Jason Duclair in the TV Hawaii Five-0 and starred in the 2011 movie Set Up with 50 Cent and Bruce Willis.
What a weird group.
What a weird group indeed. But yeah, and then here it is about Iran again. Follow the source of evil, wrote Montana Congressman Ryan Zinke, who served as Interior Secretary under Trump. Iran is the center of gravity. Oh my gosh. Wasn't Zinke like basically stealing office supplies from the White House the entire time he was there?
I believe so. I mean, there was so many like just petty crimes in the Trump admin. Like there's just
It's just like it's so funny that like the whole thing was Zinke's like he's a former Marine, and it's like so from his behavior, all this guy does is like hang around all day,
right.
make challenge coins, and then steal stuff from the office.
Yeah.
Either that the Marines to do abroad, or like he's he's a disgrace to the branch. And I'm saying, guys, if you're worried about PR, make sure it's the. Oh my gosh, which of our bots quit on us? Okay, seems to be working, so we're good there. Let's see.
Maybe it's a good indication to start closing it up.
There's one, I think there's like a U.S. like Marine who fought like an IDF guy in the chat, and it's like so. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, here we go. 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 Here we go.
So the problem is, while doing nothing will empower them, bombing them might empower them more, warned Mark Farage, who owns a firearms and amusement manufacturer in Virginia. Of course, why not? I don't think we have successfully bombed anyone into an ally since World War II. Maybe we should consider more tools than just a hammer. Huge mistake to attack Iran directly, concurred Mark Haight, a Special Forces veteran, blah, 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 sent in Iraq's Anbar province. We should be inviting 10/20 October 7th here. Jacobson was infuriated by the criticism of his blueprint for the war. We don't want them as an ally, he said in a comment directed at Farage. Let them spend their time stoned on quad and screwing their sheep. He was even more contemptuous of Haidt's opinion. You remind me of the Jews in Germany in the 30s who thought that by being quiet that the problem would go away, he sneered. We have no choice but to hit them hard and then kill these cells if they raise their ugly heads. Why are you taking a coward's standpoint? So you're going to waddle your fat ass over there and put some skin in the game, or are you content to put others at risk, retorted Haidt. Unlike you, I've had skin in the game for years, said Jacobson, who served in the IDF in the 1970s. What have you done? Jeez.
Retired SEAL Senior Chief with a Bronze Star with V. I'm assuming that's for valor. Shot back height.
Yeah. Bronze Star's reward for heroism in combat zones and are not uncommon, but a Bronze Star with V for valor are relatively rare.
Oh my god, this is just a dick measuring, like the dick measuring contest. It was crazy. But
Right?
then
Who's got more skin in this game?
hell out of them. Kazaruni insisted. Kazaruni, what? Okay, mess with US and you will eat. You will eat your shit. What the?
Yeah.
The United States of America is still the strongest country in the world. Oh my gosh, I thought I was reading that wrong. No, written.
Yeah. I mean, not so bright, dude.
Oh my god, it goes on for like a ridiculous amount of time. Like there's some real characters in this chat. This is how the group chat moved conclusion. Oh my god. Does he have a conclusion for this one? Let's see. Basically, yeah. I'm gonna end the reading series quote from the article. Reading the group chat's conversations would be comical if it wasn't so pitiful and disturbing in equal measure. Group themselves as natural elites who are more intelligent, virtuous, and honorable than Heinlein's unwashed plebs. And oh my gosh. Like we're not epic geopolitics guys on this show. We really try not to be, but this was crazy, to put it bluntly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's I don't really know how else you would describe it. It's eye-opening. It's nice to have this all out there in the open, I suppose, but
It's just the paranoid Twitter thought. Your ops are on a group chat talking shit about you right now is definitely true of the global right, and I'm very curious to see how things move on, evolve moving forward. But for the state of this current election, I don't know what to make of things. It's not looking for Trump. I don't know how it's looking for Biden. I'll put it that way.
yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell like this far out. I mean, I think that like there's maybe just some sort of reticence for like just uh, for the whole process. I don't know. It's hard to tell like what how things are going to play out at this point, I think.
Exactly. This is one of the moments where
And
history is.
both candidates are old enough that there's that non-zero chance that one or both of them may expire before you know the November election.
And it's quite telling that like the rest of the world is also starting to provide some changes in conditions. So like in India, this is we'll probably have some coverage on this a little bit later, but this faction didn't make any net victories in this current election. When it comes to Mexico's new president, it's someone from AMLO's party. So will that have implications for bilateral relations? We have yet to see, but it feels good to definitely come back on the show and have some timely coverage, the latest news, but also just with how busy everyone's been on staff for this show, how things have gotten harder to predict lately, right? It is a very unique set of circumstances we find ourselves in today. That's pretty much all I can say definitively.
Yeah, I think that's a fair little sum up.
Yeah. So good to be back, everybody. Thanks again for tuning in. Thanks again, Josh. It's been great to talk
Yeah,
to you after a while, seriously.
yeah, it's always been fun. I mean, we've been doing some stuff off stream at least, but
Yeah,
it
that is.
had been a minute since We've been in the booth, or the proverbial booth, as it were.
Yeah. For all the Gundam perverts in our audience, we will have something for Gundam Seed Freedom soon ish.
I've been chomping at the bit.
Yeah, we will once a free moment presents itself, we will take advantage of it.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks again for tuning in, dear listeners. This has been another episode of Greenhouse Gaslighting. I will have the links to our show notes in the description below. Josh, people find you if they want more of you.
I mean, I'm still on Twitter, I guess. I don't post that much, but occasionally I'll post a decent meme at Joshua Cost 17 on Twitter. That's pretty much the main place I'm at these days. I'll probably be more active once I have finally gotten through the dissertation process of my doctoral degree, which is very shortly. So very exciting time for me personally.
Best of luck. Hopefully, next time we have you on the show, we can call you Dr. Josh.
That's what I'm hoping.
We're hoping for it too.
Really just identify like a television doctor persona at that point. Just
Oh my god. All right. Till next time. Take care.